Professor Chris Dellarocas, our Richard C. Shipley Professor in Information Systems, on course competition and large-scale online learning platforms.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm the last one. So thank you, Pete and your team for giving us the floor. And I'd like to thank also my wonderful co-author, Ping Wu, and Yutong Han, who is a visiting student from Peking University, for this great collaboration. So it's fitting that from healthcare, we go to education, which are two of the largest and most troublesome industries in the world, especially in terms of how much they increase in cost every year. Now, at the Questrom School, we love to talk about two-sided market business platforms. And I also would like to note that education and healthcare are the two main industries that are not dominated by platforms yet. This may be changing in education because we have a number of two-sided markets platforms like edX, Coursera, Udemy, etc., that are coming to education. For the time being, those are primarily present and dominant in non-degree courses, in workforce development, but we don't know what happens in the future. And I'm very interested in understanding what happens when, for example, next time people are looking for an MBA, they go to Udemy, in the same way we go to booking.com to book a hotel. Now, when we look at those large-scale marketplaces, we see that there are some of the most popular topics which are very busy, very congested. So, for example, in our data source, we see that there are about 3,000 different courses if you want to learn Python, or 2,400 courses to learn Excel. And when we look at how enrollment is distributed, we see that there is a very steep power law. We see that a small number of courses accounts for the largest percentage of enrollment. And therefore, we started a research agenda trying to understand, how competition takes place in such platforms and what explains course popularity. If there are 3,000 courses on Python, what is special about the 10, 20, 30 courses that basically capture most of the learner's attention? Now, what is unique here, right? So in some ways, it's interesting. We look at courses and maybe academic programs as if they're products, right? And we try to think in a marketplace which is competitive, what are the product attributes that seem to be accounting more for the learner's behaviors? So courses are experience goods, and some people might even argue they're credence goods, because students sometimes cannot even assess reliably the quality of a course even after taking it, right? That's one reason why we think that student evaluations of courses are not reliable, right? And so when students have a free market and they're choosing among different courses, they have to use various cues to determine quality and fit. And those cues are, of course, the course description, the syllabus, whatever we give them about the course. And in the platform environment, also things like popularity ratings, instructor record, whatever exists of equivalent to brand, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm going to show you today are some initial results that focus on the very precise question of how does the information content of course descriptions affect course popularity, right? Okay, so this is an example of a course description. Actually, this is one page, the first page of a course description from the platform from which we have data. You see the title, you see a star rating, you see the number of total enrolled students. And then you see prominently what you learn, what are the the outcomes, and who this course is for, which when you read it closely is a combination of prerequisites and course goals. And after that, there is a longer description, and there is also the specific set of the topics. Now, when we look at course descriptions, right, a good course description needs to provide 3 pieces of information at least. The prerequisites, who is this course for, right? The learner goals, why take the course, right? And also the specific learning outcomes, the who, why, and what, okay? So what we did is we've actually looked at course descriptions. We look at those 3 different dimensions of a course description, and then we look at 2 attributes of each of those 3 dimensions. The first one is concreteness, which is, well, it's a very high level term, right? How concretely concrete is the description, and I will show you some examples. And the other one is the cognitive level of the description. Now, in learning science, there's something called the Bloom's taxonomy, right? is primarily applied when you want to articulate your learning outcomes. Basically, we say that learning outcomes, the low level is, well, I will teach you to remember, I don't know, the rules of geometry, right? You know, the definition of sine, cosine, and tangent, right? And I will teach you how to understand the various types of triangles. I mean, that's the low level. It's basically expressed in terms of knowledge. And then the higher level is expressed in what application, right? I mean, what will this knowledge enable you to do, right? Apply, analyze, evaluate, and create, right? And of course, we tell our faculty that it is good pedagogy to have a combination and to make sure that your learning outcomes are not in the low level, but try to go into the higher level. So what I'll show you is, I think for the first time, what happens in a free market where students have free choice, right? What kind of descriptions do they gravitate towards? Okay, so as I mentioned, we have a very rich data set from one of the largest global learning marketplaces that has 250,000 courses. By now, probably more than that, you know, more than 50 million learners from around the world. And for each course, we have all the data that's visible to the learner, you know, before they pay, right? The title, description, course syllabus, etc. We also have monthly learner data for the last 14 years, right? How many people have, and basically what I wanted to say, in this particular marketplace, people buy courses by the item, right? So there's no subscription, you basically pay to buy a course. These are reasonably low priced courses from like $20 to $200. But still, you know, they have a choice. They have the choice, I pay for this course, I pay for the other course, right? So we have information about how many people paid for a course every month. Okay, we also have information about reviews of the courses that we haven't really looked at yet. Okay, so what we use in what I'm going to present today is courses and learner data in Python courses. And we just looked into how many learners have chosen to purchase a Python course in a particular month in our data set. Okay, so what do we have? So basically our dependent variable here is the course's percentile rank within its topic category in terms of learners acquired in a specific month. And I mean, these results are actually robust when we expand on other categories. So our key independent variables that I will elaborate in a moment are the concreteness levels of how prerequisites, course goals, and learning outcomes are expressed in the course description, and also the cognitive level in terms of the Bloom's taxonomy of the same, of prerequisites, course goals, and learning outcomes. We also have a large number of control variables because remember, this is happening in a platform environment. So we look at things like, is this a paid course or a free course? What's the course rating? What's the instructor rating? What is the course popularity, the total number of cumulative learners, and also the course length? Because I mean, that's an interesting variable that we're looking at. There are short courses and long courses. I mean, that's actually a very different choice. Course age, how old is the course, and a couple of other things. Now, here's the thing. The main challenge in our research is how do we assess high-level constructs such as concreteness and Bloom's taxonomy at scale, right? From large amounts of text. These are pretty complicated constructs. So what we did is, well, we used ChatGPT, right? So we actually used ChatGPT to come up as a qualified research assistant who does a pretty high level and sophisticated marking of text. I don't really have a lot of time to show you the various prompts, but what our validation method is, we tweak the prompts until we can, then we compare with the validation of human ratings for a subset until we get agreement, which is in the high 80s. I mean, that's basically the validation of what we do. And I want to show you that ChatGPT is doing pretty damn good, I have to say. So for this type of work, we're very pleased with the results so far. So just let me give you some examples. So just illustrative speaking. So we asked ChatGPT to rate concreteness in requirements from 1 to 4. And here are some examples. So a very vague requirement specification is anyone who's interested to learn Python should take this course. A very concrete is the Python course is for those who have experience about programming. If you are a programmer and writing in C# or Java, you should take this course. If you're starting programming a new term, you should not take this course. I mean, the grammar errors are verbatim from the descriptions. And here are some examples of learning outcomes, right? So low level, learn about Python by basics and installation, how to create variables, how to create a Python list. So basically in terms of knowledge elements, right? Mid-level, write a program to redirect the flow of packets in a network, read and write to a CSV file with a Python script, and then high-level create graphical user interface for application, build a QR code generation using Python, right? So basically, we did all this marking of the text, and I'm just going to show you the results quickly. First of all, control variables. They are important, most of them as expected. So yes, people are price sensitive. Free courses attract more learners, and the higher the price, the lower the learners. People pay attention to the average course rating, and they pay attention to the average instructor's rating. So by the way, the particular platform we get data from is what I call the Airbnb of education. It doesn't have courses from established institutions. Basically, anybody in the world can put up a course. So there is no brand per se, but what there is that instructors who have multiple courses, they have a profile and they have an instructor rating, and that seems to matter as well. Older courses, it seems that people prefer newer courses. So when courses age, they lose favor. And what's interesting, and I'm in some other talk, I will look more. I mean, so people actually go for longer, more substantial courses. They don't go for easy courses. In fact, we have some other experiments looking, marking the difficulty of the course. And we do find that the learners are very deliberate. They go for courses which give them a big bang of the buck. Now, the main results of what I'm discussing today is that we find unequivocally that concreteness is good. So in both prerequisites, goals, and outcomes, if course whose description is marked as being more concrete has an edge in attractive learners, right? Also, it seems that learners prefer prerequisites and course goals expressed in terms of professional positions and applications as opposed to knowledge. Instead of saying people, you're going to learn, I don't know, Python and machine learning packages in Python, if you tell them, take this course if you want to start your own startup by building your own website and web apps, they prefer that. They go for that. It's kind of similarly, in terms of learning goals, courses that have more learning goals expressed at a high level, like create and apply, they do better than those who express courses in a low level, which is you're going to learn X, Y, Z. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of numbers here, so you know, we don't have time for that, but that's what this the regressions seem to be supporting. Okay, and the last thing I want to show, oops, where am I going here? The last thing I'm going to show, if this thing can collaborate here, okay, is the quantile regression. So what's interesting is that learners seem to be more sensitive to all of these course parameters for courses which are kind of in the middle of the pack of popularity, okay? For the course, once a course makes it to the very top, right, of people's preference, basically the only thing people care are the popularity, the fact that this is the top course they pay less attention to everything else, okay? But of course, and that's what we're doing right now, there's a dynamic process, right? Courses make it to the top somehow, right? And so while they're kind of fighting for position, apparently all of these things play a role. So we're in the process of developing dynamic models of how courses really emerge to the top of the list. Okay, so that's what I wanted to present today. Learners seem to favor concrete descriptions of prerequisites, goals, and outcomes in course descriptions, and they really prefer descriptions that emphasize what they will be able to do with the course versus what knowledge they will gain. So remember, we're telling our faculty to do this because it's good pedagogy. What we're showing, I think for the first time, is that in a free market where people have free choice, they actually go for that, okay? So it's not just good pedagogy, it's basically good marketing for your course, right? Learners gravitate, of course, towards popular courses, no surprise. They do pay attention to course and instructor ratings. We were not sure if that would be the case. And they do opt for recent, longer, more substantial courses. And once a course becomes dominant in its category, learners pay less attention to anything except popularity. So we have a lot of other things we're looking at right now. I just want to say, since it's a good forum, that I have positions for PhD students who are interested to to help us in this endeavor. So if you find this work intriguing and you might want to work with us, please come and find us after this talk or email us, right? So thank you so much again, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. Questions?
Hello, sir. Myself, Vijendra. I am MBA student, so I've been doing the same kind of research. So one of the unique thing which I came across is that I found that there is a kind of pattern. There are a couple of videos available freely on YouTube, which actually teach you more. And maybe those videos have been created in much creative way. And sometimes like the kind of learning which we get through those videos, like we don't get through even through going through like these platforms and all that. So is there any pattern of like creating creative videos in like means like providing information in short span, but then doing it kind of in creative way?
Yeah, so we haven't really looked at videos yet. So the goal of this work is really to look at competition among the courses. And keep in mind that when you are selecting a course, you haven't really watched the videos yet. I mean, most courses have a little teaser video. And that's something we're going to look at eventually to see the patterns. And there have been some other studies by colleagues in my field who look at the patterns aspects of video. But the question here, and it is more of a business question, like, imagine a future where education becomes like the hospitality industry, right? But where we have a small number of platforms where learners go to select programs, right? This is going to be a major, major disruption of our business models. And in some ways, I'm trying to prepare us by trying to understand how do these things seem to work, right? I mean, and remember, the fact that you've actually bought the course doesn't even mean that you finished it or B, that you're happy with it, right? We're just saying, if you look at which is the same we have to say about our programs here. You enroll to our MBA, you commit to that, right? So you may be happy, you may not be happy, but we got you as a student, right? So that's the key of the question here. But if you're doing work that's similar, I would like to talk to you.
Thanks, Chris. Quick question about this. Also, really, really interesting. These papers have been fantastic. Really, really fascinating. Do you get the sense that the platforms are segmenting? So you mentioned your platform is kind of the Airbnb. So are there platforms that are moving to will be the Four Seasons 5-star hotel version of online?
Yeah.
And that's how the platforms are starting to segment, which, from a research standpoint might suggest that the people on this platform are self-selecting into wanting that type of opportunity relative to people going to other platforms.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question, and we don't know yet. For the time being, yes, there is some sort of segmentation. There are platforms that specialize on executive education. There are platforms specialized on, the majority of platforms, this one is like general purpose, but has individual courses, and they do have a slant towards more technical courses, because that's where a lot of the demand is. But, we don't know. Personally, and we wrote a paper with Andrei Hagiu on this, right? I think what would be good for the incumbents, like our institutions, if there is some segmentation. What we want to avoid is the emergence of one or two dominant platforms that basically are catch-all. Because when we get to such a future, those platforms will dictate the rules of the game. Like the same way that Amazon, right, or Airbnb, for example, or Booking.com dictate the rules of the game in the respective industries. So, there are a number of things. We have a paper at Harvard Business Review on some of the things institutions could do today in order to steer the market towards a coexistence of multiple competing platforms, as opposed to one or two big platforms that basically will not necessarily be the good thing for the industry.
Thank you. Were there any factors related to engagement with the professors or other students in terms of after access to professors or discussion groups that had any sort of
impact? So we haven't looked at that yet. This is this platform is somewhat homogeneous. It doesn't allow a lot of variance. So that's what I hope the study of reviews is going to give us, because people talk about those things in the reviews. And we have several million reviews. I mean, we have a lot of reviews there, and so I think that's going to give us. I mean, I can only imagine that this will be good, right? I mean, but the way it works is that this is going to feed into the rating, right? And that's how people learn about it before they take the course. But I cannot imagine this will not play a role.
So, did you learn much about, for those top 200, how much turnover there is in the 100 or 200? And I'm particularly interested if there isn't that much, because I can see how there's this wheel of I get popular, therefore I get more popular, therefore, et cetera, what it takes to break into the 200.
Oh boy, thank you. That's why I need students, right? So as you said, it is relatively sticky, right? One thing is that we did look at how many instructors who broke through, like actually there are instructors who have more than 1 million students. In fact, some people actually, well, I shouldn't be saying in this forum, they make more than $1 million out of these courses, right? Side gig, right? So they were about, in the last 5 years, there were only 10 or 15 instructors who basically were able to do this, right? And we're trying to get in touch with them and understand exactly how they did it, because it's not just numbers. There's a lot of other things they could be doing which are outside of the platform. So we're trying to get a bigger picture of this, because it's just the topic is just fascinating, and we're trying to understand.
Also,
Exactly. We have a few examples. They are kind of, about a dozen or so. Of such cases. Very few, but they exist, and it would be interesting to just study them one by one and understand what happens.
Oh, one more question.
Great study, and I look at it and say, okay, explain why it's more difficult to get into a medical school than to a graduate program in philosophy. Okay, which may teach you more how to think, but the money is not there. I think there's interesting perspective if I look at the big picture. For us as professors, our market value has been primarily determined by our research, because that everybody can measure with citation, papers, etc. But nobody really knows our teaching, because they're kind of hidden within colleges. The minute we go on those platforms, it may change the balance in how we attract, compensate, and retain faculty, because the market forces may force universities to think differently about it, or maybe even high school. Because now everybody knows how good you are, you're the top 200, and they want to keep you as a star to attract students for my graduate or undergraduate program. Any thoughts about it, Chris?
I think you're right. I mean, this is one more reason why we need to be studying those animals, right? More broadly, I keep saying to my colleagues, education is a $6 trillion industry, right? I just checked ChatGPT. It's 50% larger than the automotive industry, right? It's only, I think, surpassed by the healthcare industry, right? And a lot of us look down on it as a study, as a field of study. I mean, if you look at education as an industry, I mean, changes are coming. And I think it will really be super important, not only for our, interesting intellectually, but important for our institutional strategies to understand what's happening and how things work in those new animals that are coming to the ecosystem, so that we can be prepared when things really become to disrupt what we do here.
Okay, we have to wrap it up. Thank you very much.